Welcome everyone to the episode 96 of the LIBERcast. And before I'm starting to express my gratitude to everyone who's listening now, that's going to join us live, and the people who will listen it later. Thank you so much for being there and supporting the LIBERcast. And please share the information. If you found this information valuable, share it. And if you got interested in it's we don't have to wait. Just start now, do the work, and look into what how to think, how to will, how to take your courage and sacrifice a little bit of your time and plunge and dive into this important information, this crucial information about what this world is made of in every aspect. And I think the first thing that we must do is do the inner work, do the shadow work, because the work starts there. This is where it begins, inside. We have to take back what they seemingly took from us, but it's not really true, because it's about mind control. It's about your ability to respond to external stimuli in society and culture. So I just want to thank you everyone, and thank you for I'm gonna bring him up. Hey Jim, welcome to the LIBERcast, man.
Thank you, Fred. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. We had this conversation yesterday, and I was very excited to do this episode, because we had common understanding about these fundamental knowledges. And please, let's start. Please quickly tell the audience and me, what is your path, where you started and where you are now.
Well, Fred, I've always been a seeker. I've always been interested in some kind of spirituality. I was raised Roman Catholic, but I had a thirst for knowledge. I was always reading. By the time I was 12, 13 years old, I was reading autobiography of a yogi, and I was reading books on other religions. And, I was always interested in finding, getting, you know, getting more information. I had a hunger for it, really, and I've been a professional musician my whole life, and so I've had a chance to travel the world and play in all different kinds of places and soak in different cultures. And the thing that really changed me was, I've lived in New York up until about 2 years ago. I lived in New York for 30 years. So I was in New York during 9/11. I was in New York during the whole scamdemic. I had seen everything. I'd seen the mind control that had happened on both occasions.
Yeah.
And the thing that really turned me around, having the interest in all the spirituality. I also, being a musician, I'd also been with musicians of different styles. So people that I knew from a rock or a metal background were into more dark things. So I'd read, the Satanic Bible, all the LaVey stuff. I'd read all the Michael Aquino and Temple of Set, practically everything that Feral House put out as well. But I always knew that there was something about that. It felt like I needed to take a shower after I finished reading all of that, and it wasn't really until I found Mark Passio's work that things really started to come together for me. And I found Mark's work in 2015, and
Hmm.
I was drawn to it. And also there was another part of me that really rebelled. I said, no, this can't be the way it is, and I fought it a lot, but I always kept coming back to it. I always knew that I had to hang in there with it, so my persistence really paid off.
The, I think Mark's work is invaluable, and
Yes,
the amount of information, uh, and important information. There's hours and hours of stuff, the podcast, the videos, the presentations, the seminar that are, they're jewels of wisdom.
absolutely. The volume of information is staggering. The only one who's really comparable is Michael Tessarian, and probably David Icke as well, in terms of sheer, the volume of material.
Hmm. uh, Jordan Maxwell too.
Right, right. Oh gosh, how
Mm,
can I forget Jordan? Absolutely.
yeah,
Sorry.
Michael Tessarian has his specialization in, uh, I pretend to be in psychology and astrology and things like that that are intimately related to one another. And yeah, his work is invaluable,
Yep,
too. I mean, these are, like I was saying to you, I consider them the magi's of the modern world.
absolutely.
Yeah, and it's going to be. I hope that as a lot of people will take their role after that and continue to share this information after long after their death. And this is so important.
Absolutely. The work has to continue. It has to continue from person to person and generation to generation.
Incredible, endless introspection, and you I when it comes to this kind of knowledge, I tend to stay objective
Mhm.
and being, really, have a more eclectic, more wide array of information. I tend to go when I take a subject, and then I'm going to see a lot of different, people who have with different maybe approach or perception of the same thing, and I think it's a wonderful way to put some deepness into the this incredible work that is the occult and natural law and
Yep,
psychology and shadow work and things like that. And the one thing that really changed the game for me was natural law.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, without question. That's really the backbone of everything.
Hey Chris, welcome. So yeah, this world is it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, nature, and it's a powerful message for the people who can hear and can see.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's something too. We also have to remember that the dark occultists know this material. They know these teachings just as much as we are learning it. And the fact is that they're occulting that and hiding that from the masses through moral, pushing their moral relativism. Really, that's really the linchpin. If we can get people to understand the absolute essentiality of absolute morality and understanding that the universe operates according to a plan and not in the simplistic way that it's taught in the cultural religions. It's such a deep thing. That's the thing I find the most fascinating, is the pattern recognition. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that's really the heart of it for me, because, you know, my lifetime of as a musician has really, you know, that's the cornerstone, as you know, being a musician yourself, you know, that it's understanding patterns
Yep.
and understanding the holistic aspect of how all these different mechanisms fit together. And it's astonishing to me that people, they, the people who are, let's say, they're left brain bullied, they think that the natural world, you know, what they call science, you know, and what we know as scientism, that that is something which operates to inviolable rules. And the more that, you know, we understand that, but that morality and the world and the world itself and morals and ethics and the way to live operate on an equal set of rules that are equal to what happens in the natural world. And people think that it's random, and it's not.
Yeah, I like to talk about this because we can take all the natural law and resume it into one.
Mm-hmm.
It's causality.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
This principle there, the principle of causality, is so important that people understand this basic logical fact, this truth of what life is, and nature and humans and cultures and empires, because they're all interconnected together. We have the correspondence, you have the rhythm principle.
Right. And
Yeah,
cause and effect.
yeah, cause and effect is the biggest. I mean, you do something, there's gonna be a wave that gonna start from that. Can be words, can be intentions, can be actions, and it's incredible. The only just the first one that it's important that people must know, it's the mentalism
Yep.
principle, because at a certain stage we didn't create nature. We don't create nature. Nature creates us.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
but the thing with nature and humans is that we have the power as humans to create from nature. And this is what we're doing actually all the time.
Yep.
This is and this fact is so powerful to understand that your behaviors and your actions are gonna have there's gonna be a ripple of what you're doing.
Yeah. And that can be, it can be a very subtle thing. You don't even realize how
Hmm.
the simplest, you know, one decision can really change your whole life, but sometimes you don't realize it, but in retrospect.
It's a crazy ride.
Yeah, man. No, for real. And it's funny, you know, you mentioned shadow work. And, you know, one thing we didn't talk about last night that just came to mind now is that I was in an organization. I'm not going to name it, but to do men's work and shadow work. And I really found that was incredibly powerful and incredibly strong. And I went to a couple of shadow work seminars, and I had the tools to really bring it, to my life outside of, in the seminars and in the meetings. But, there's an odd kind of thing that happened, is that, with the whole beginning of the scamdemic, this particular organization, there were people within it and at the leadership body, the leadership level, who really bought into this whole thing, hook, line, and sinker. They bought into the narrative. And I realized within maybe 6 to 8 months that I had to leave because of the incongruity between what the stated mission of the organization was and how they actually practiced, or I should say didn't practice it, because there was a point they would have, retreats and so forth. And, when they started, hauling out the jab, they were requiring it to attend the meetings and, attend the seminar.
Mm-hmm.
So when I found that out and I heard this, I heard this through a colleague, a fellow, a fellow, inductee in this. And I was like, that's it. I'm leaving. I can't condone this.
Mm-hmm.
And
Shadow work is something that was thrown by Carl Jung, and he didn't go really deep into it. He mentioned it.
right.
He found a name for this introspection, but it has many names.
Yes.
And the one thing that we do first is stop lying to ourselves.
Yep.
If you can't do that, you cannot do the shadow work.
That's right. That's right.
This is the I had this conversation with Marx on the LIBERcast, and he brought that up, and I mean, this is the one thing. It's stop lying to yourself and stop lying to the other people. And children,
Yep.
lying, like these kind of lies are evil.
Yes.
The when you keep people willingly out of this precious information, and you're doing it willingly, you're an evil. You're evil. This is the definition of evil.
Absolutely. You're stealing information from them.
Yep.
You're stealing you're stealing that ability, of them to make a fully informed decision.
Exactly. Yeah, and eventually you steal their consent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's the I remember Mark's talk on the true 7 deadly sins, and he talks about it all can be really distilled down to don't steal.
Yep.
It all comes down to that: lying. You're stealing, you're stealing a full relationship with someone. Not only a full relationship with the person you're talking to, but the full breadth of the information available.
Yeah.
For them. So you're stealing two of the most precious things, that from a person. All of these aspects are sacred,
Absolutely.
but those are among the most.
Yeah, and for the people who don't know, ignorance isn't justification.
Absolutely. That's the difference between, the aspect of nescience as opposed to ignorance. And that if you truly, we have so much of that, especially in the, since 2020, we have people saying, oh, I didn't know, or all these things. Yes, you did, because the information, despite all the horrible censorship, it was available. As long as it's out there in the universe and you have the desire to seek out information, it's there. It may take more time to get to it, but it's absolutely there for you. It's not, if the information didn't exist, that would be another thing. That would be nescience. If it were somehow so deeply buried that no one in this physical world could get to it, then that would truly be nescient. But that's not what has happened, and
We made choice and causality. I come back with it, and then
right.
there's consequences for indulging into ignorance and apathy.
Yep, that's right. And apathy is, that's stealing as well.
Yeah,
Because you're stealing, there's the idea that even if you take no action, you are still acting, but you're really stealing something that's active by being, apathy is passive, and you're really withholding something. You're withholding your own action by not, by people who are, let's say, they're not going out and doing the great work. They're not they're not putting knowledge out there, and talking about these crucially, they're not, to say they're crucially important, it even demeans it. It's essential to the existence of creation itself.
yeah. the the study of the self is study of nature, and the nature of the study of nature is the study of the self.
Yep. That's
And correspondence, I bring the principle of correspondence now.
Yes.
And I think it's a very uh, sensitive information because of the reaction from the people.
Hmm.
When I introduce natural law to people, uh, they don't know about this, and they don't know. So the
Right.
shock is immense, and the first reaction most of them have is whether ignorance or denial.
Right.
So this is a strange response to common sense.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's only common sense.
Fred, do you think that reaction is, would you say that that's based in ego and the calcified ego?
There's a multiple factors that can influence that. First of all, humans are not born ignorant.
Yeah.
So ignorance is taught. So you have fear, and fear is controlling everything. So when you're a kid, when you're children, when you're a baby, you have rational fears.
Yes.
They're instinctual fears that you have inside of you,
Hmm.
that we are all sharing at a level or another, like fear of the dark, fear of being abandoned, fear of starving, or a fear of death, or a fear of the unknown that we were talking about. The fear
Yeah.
of the unknown is the mother of them all.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have this instinctual anxiety that we're born with, and ego is part of who you are. It Without your ego, you're not what you are. It's very the thing that makes you realize that you are, this is my glass of water, and it's not you don't take the other one. You understand that you exist and you have a presence and a
Yeah.
consciousness. Yes.
The identification of the self, the realization
Yeah.
that as you said, the realization that you exist, that that could even be, perhaps that can even be called the balanced ego. It's, because if you have if you're operating in balance and you're a psychologically healthy person, the ego doesn't take over your consciousness. You know,
Hmm.
you just realize that, you know, I, Jim, am different from, a dog or a cat or another human being. You realize that difference. There's
Hmm.
differentiation there. But if you have, what the Satanists, since I mentioned LeVay earlier, the whole thing of the Satanists, their idea is they'll call it enlightened self-interest for their own propaganda. But we know that in that so-called enlightened self-interest is really the ego run amok.
Hmm. the I mean for this, I I don't I don't attach the original ego to this kind of behavior. I I agree with the work of Carl Jung and Michael Tessarians on the superego and your external self and the internal self. I don't know if I express it
Mhm.
uh, good, but actually, we're building as we grow up a mask, a what it's called a super ego. It's your
Right.
personality, your persona that you use for acting in the world outside of you, the family, the friends, the society, the
Yeah.
city, the relative, etc., etc. And this thing there is one of the key of why we are here now.
Yes.
It's pure negligence and ignorance that are brought that up. You know, I I talk a lot about intergenerational mind control.
Right. Right. Yes.
This is a insidious way to program, condition the young with and brainwashing all the people around them, you know, and you're doing it generation after generation after generation. After a few one, you don't have to do it anymore. You don't have to push the propaganda. It's going all the way by itself, the society and the culture.
Yep. It's transformed, it's transmitted rather, you know, like from, birth to death, it's almost prenatally it happens, in the culture. Like, just look at example, what's happening, the difference in, you take something like what's happening in um let's say the education system. Okay, like how I remember when I was growing up in America, we I was in one of the last years that they had something called civics, which was you studied the branches of government, what they actually did, legislative, executive, and judicial. You understood the functions of each branch, and you learned it because the idea at the time was that this is what you needed to be an informed citizen to live in this country. And the thing is, I remember about 2 years after I was in high school, they changed from civics to social studies, and they started bringing all these different things in, and they stopped teaching about the branches of government, because they even stopped teaching about things like, I remember in school, we actually learned about Thomas Paine and common sense. We actually learned, and he's the least of the American founding fathers, and that is actually talked about. They made a musical about Hamilton, who was basically a British agent and the one responsible for getting the banks in here. But Thomas Paine, the guy who was, as our friend Corey talks about, abolitionism, Thomas Paine was really the first abolitionist. He was against slavery, and he was unwilling to compromise in that principle, and he died penniless. He wasn't like the other founding fathers. And we learned about him. We learned about history. And the thing is, now you can say that everything that ever since the late 19th century, that the Prussian educational system has been, it's been disseminated throughout the world, and, was meant to create good cogs in the machine instead of independent thinkers. But I can say that I still remember, I felt that I had some level of, at least mechanically, I understood some things, that they taught these things objectively. And it wasn't, nowadays it's like your feelings are facts. Our facts don't matter, your feelings matter, and all this stuff. And it's the disillusion over generations. Like Antonio Gramsci said, he was the one who was really responsible for what's happening in the world today, and especially in your country and mine, in that, it's the Marxist infiltration of the educational system. And that had been happening really since the early 60s, was when they really put it into overdrive, to now, to the point where, it's just, you can see the results of what's happening. And this is the degradation of the ideas of, real education.
It's actually there's a name for that, and I use it a lot. It's an inversion of the actual culture.
Yes.
That was there.
Yeah, that's perfect, because it's all, we're really living in an inverted world.
Yep.
Totally. Like, if like, there's a saying among people that, our friends, they'll say, well, if you want to know what to do for your health, do the opposite of what they tell you. Do the opposite of what the CDC and all these different places tell you.
Yeah. I think Valérie Tinkler. Thank you for being there, sister. Yeah, Elizabeth Iserbit.
Yeah, Charlotte Iserbit. Yes.
Yeah, Charlotte Iserbit. Sorry about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I had my beautiful wife bought me the Bible of and it was pretty expensive, but it's an incredible book about the transition between the liberal arts, the old system of education, and the communist manifesto oriented with the computers and the symbolism and repetition and the complete removal of individuality and yeah.
Yeah, that's the dumbing down of America, isn't it? Is that the book? Is that the name of
Yeah,
it?
the dumbing down of America.
Yes, yes, yes. I know it. It's wonderful. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's scary at the same time.
it is, and that brings to mind a really funny thing because, when I was still going to school and I had left, I left Boston. I originally went to school in Boston for a year and played music up there, and then I decided to continue my education. I went to Rutgers University in New Brunswick, and when I was there in the 80s, this was the beginning of things like they had this movement. I don't know if you've heard of it. It was called Take Back the Night. It was the feminist. It was feminist demonstrations about harassment and behaviors on campus in the fraternities, where women were assaulted and things like that. And they'd have these demonstrations, and when I look back on them, whatever laudable ideas might have been behind it, the whole idea of the demonstration, it was very different than what happened in the 60s. You could tell there was the element of, what Wilhelm Reich talks about in the mass psychology of fascism. It was like one mind
Yeah,
going forward and chanting a slogan, and it sounded like one voice. And I look back on my time there and I noticed, now I could see the beginnings of all the Marxist, infiltration there, on that campus. And
collectivism.
well, it was everything. It's funny, Fred, because it was everything from the collectivism, the outright communism in the
Mhm.
classes, but it was also the fact that what was happening, because where the music department was it was right across. There was a bridge. The music the music and the dance and the theater were on one side. The visual arts was across this footbridge to another area. And I remember going into the art gallery and seeing these works, the students, and I'm like thinking to myself, and this is really aesthetics aside, I could see that they were breaking down the idea of beauty in art. They're just, I can't specifically remember the pieces that these students were making, but it were things that weren't related. They didn't want to create things of beauty or permanence or spirituality. It was all about, some kind of expression of something that was topical at the time. You know,
Like fucking sticking a banana on the wall and
yes,
killing it and
absolutely. It was everything like, that kind of, Warhol-esque, pop art, and everything to, what was starting to happen in the 90s in New York. There was a whole thing called transgressive art, and I was starting to see the beginnings of that in the 80s in the students. They would have things like, uh, let me see if I can even remember. They'd have things like, women's bras hanging up with, flames attached to them and things like that. And, it was just something where I could just feel the energy was, it was towards destroying rather than creating.
Yeah, I mean, this is how they roll.
Yeah,
They're not like suppressing it momentarily. They're replacing it a little bit by a little bit. They're injecting socialism and collectivism and intersectionalism a
yes,
little bit and a little bit, and then the people are getting more confused there, and the chaos comes after. And I'm not talking necessarily about violence in the streets or something like that. There's going to be chaos in the heart and the mind of the people.
that's
So and we were talking about the principle of correspondence. You have chaos, you have confusion inside of you. There's going to be chaos and confusion outside.
absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm. When there's a critical mass that is affected by this state of mind that is neurotism and denial, and moral relativism and
Yep,
solipsism, and all these ism that when it mixed together, it creates monsters.
it does. And that's the biggest cancer at the heart of everything is moral relativism. Because, I took one of the things that I took at Rutgers right before I left, I took a logic class. And I'll never forget that one person, this was just a one, it was a beginning class. It was Logic 101. And I remember one of the students actually asked, are you telling me, and I get chills still thinking about it, because the person said, you mean to tell me that my feelings and opinions don't matter? And the teacher said, it's not that your feelings and opinions don't matter, it's that you have to test everything against what is absolute in this world. And I think that was probably the last gasp of rationality in the schools, you know, because I don't think you'd hear anything like that, in any of these major institutions now.
Critical thinking, it's not a mud at all.
Right.
Yeah, it's people are encouraged to be stupid and ignorant now. You're smart, only you must be stupid. You're smart, you're a reject, you're how they call that, you're an insecure person. If
Right.
you can think for yourself, you're insecure. If you're confronting people, you're
Insensitive.
yeah, insensitive. That's it.
Right. And if you state your opinion with any kind of emphasis, you're a know-it-all, or you're
Yeah,
you're you're too aggressive, you know.
yeah, and I in my great work, um I had these conversation with different people with different level of wisdom and understanding, and there's cognitive dissonance that rings into the heart and mind of the people. Whatever, if you're a great worker or you're a spiritual person, or there's schisms into the ideologies that people embrace, because this is not only about freedom. I mean, freedom is a word, that's an idea, that's a state that we all wish to have and acquire with the time. We we always have the choice.
That's
The
right.
choice it's yours. It's your responsibility. It's your thing. You do your choice for yourself. And yesterday I was telling you that the only thing I firmly stand on this, that free will, the only free will you have is your, how do you react to external stimuli?
Right.
How do you choose to react to what is happening in reality, in truth, you know?
Yeah, the Bruce Lee idea of it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with it.
I encourage people, by the way, if you have questions, if you have comments, just put them there. I'm gonna go and on Facebook and YouTube to see the comments and questions. By the way, and if you have critics, I invite you to do it. Okay, because we're there to learn, we're there to share, and grow together. This is why I do it. This is why I do the LIBERcast. I do it for the other people, but I do it for myself. You know,
By teaching you learn, and by learning you teach.
exactly, exactly. And it the thing that I wanted to say is that we we can espouse an idea and imbue ourselves with the principles and things like that, but at a certain in certain conditions, humans will throw these principles away by force of things that are happening. And I think this is one of the subject that brings the the more conflicts is when the shit will hit the fan. You know, where are your principle will be? Where will they be?
Yeah, well, that's a great point, Fred, because that's where we have to be able to hold to it's easy to hold to a principle when you're not tested. But if you have a test,
Hmm.
if you have a conflict, like, you know, so many people will be like, well, I have to do X, Y, and Z to keep my job, or to do this, or, and the thing is, no amount of nothing material is worth losing your soul and losing your integrity for. Nothing
Absolutely.
material. If you're going to be more, and not to say that we don't have to survive, but if your God is, money or comfort, and you're not willing to have a, you know, be prepared to have a level of sacrifice to keep your principles intact, to keep your very soul intact, then what's going to happen. I mean, this is nothing what's happening now. I mean, when shit really hits the fan, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. All these YouTubers, these TikTokers around, like fucking wasting their time, you know, wasting precious time, because it's all we have is time.
that's right. And it's an interesting thing bringing up TikTok is I heard recently that in China, TikTok is entirely different. That they have, like, the kids for the Chinese audience, the TikTok will do things like they solve puzzles, they do math problems, they do things that are enriching to them, and not this.
Mathematics and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Or even, some level of, they're exercising, their discipline, they're exercising, either some kind of physical exercise or something to benefit themselves, not these displays of mental imbalance that are happening. I mean,
Yeah.
talk about the world being in thrall. What we're experiencing now. I remember, I'll never forget, this was the best description of everything that's happened since 2020 is Kathy O'Brien said the world has been in a trauma-based mind control since March of 2020.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about mass psychosis.
Right, right. The mass, there's the uh who was the that psychologist from the Netherlands, Desmet, who talked about mass formation psychosis or something like that.
Yep.
He talked about it, but it's not a new principle. It's something that'd been around. I mentioned Wilhelm Reich in the mass psychology of fascism. That's been around. I mean, he wrote that book back in, first when he first came to America, so he saw it immediately, of what the dangers were in, holding to the collective mind in that sense, being the mob, so to speak.
And I want to bring something before we're going with that. What's happening now happens not because of the government,
Right.
not about because of the agencies or geopolitics. It's because people are ignorant, people are cowards, people are fearful, and we are bringing that to ourselves. We are to blame for doing nothing against it. We're seeing negligence, violence to the elderly people and the children, and we're looking elsewhere,
Yes.
and people think that they're moral. People think that they're spiritual. Are you fucking kidding me?
That's
You
right.
know,
They're going to say, I'm a good person. What makes you a good person if you're letting this transpire? How are
it's
you a good person? You're not.
it's horrifying. The things that we've seen since 2020, it was just it just reemerged. It was already there, but
It's
it reemerged because of this constant pushing of pollution, psychic pollution that they were pushing into the mind of people.
that's
People were only talking about this, and I lost 3 jobs because of that. Okay, because I stood my ground.
right.
Okay, I
Right.
was telling that was fucking bullshit, and I don't get into it. I lost 3 jobs because of that, and it had, yes, it was bad, but there was a lot of great things happened. There's a lot of people who started to see what this machination was. There's a lot, but like usual, the people who just wake up, they're confused, they're angry, they're depressed, and what they're doing, they're gonna search for a substitution of security or comfort, mental comfort or emotional comfort. They're gonna go to QAnons, and they're gonna go to, oh, the presidents, the president. It's gonna be the greatest ones, and religions. New age is one of the worst ones that are, they're deeply entrenched into this society now that we're living. People are straight up 5 6 years old children in their mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're not willing to be adults and face it head on, face what's going on within yourself, you know, like you said, it's the hermetic principle, it's what's within is without,
Yep.
and if you don't face it within yourself, it's got to come out somehow.
Yep.
And if you don't have the vigilance and the discipline to figure this out and change change that aspect of yourself, as you say, do the shadow work, do the work that allows you to reintegrate yourself. That's the most important thing, because we can't be, we can't be of service to creation unless we ourselves are, no, unless we're whole in that sense, or we're on the way to being whole.
And for the people who say, "Oh, I don't care, I'm going to be dead in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years." It's not about you. It's about the children.
That's
We're
right.
not, when you have children in the law, you don't own anything. It's your children that own what you have.
That's right.
So based on that knowledge, and I think it's a logical thing. I think it doesn't need to be wrote as a law to be rational and common sense. And just think about how we treat children. If you treat yourself with self-loathing, and you're fearful, and you live in this illusionary world that you build into your mind, to make yourself more comfortable, your children will pay the price of your ignorance. It's a very insidious, very evil thing, and people don't know that it's evil, because you actually uh, putting your inadequacies and your flaws onto your children. And this is where intergenerational mind control resides. It's being a parent. It's not just feeding them or shelter them or buying them clothes. It's about showing them how to treat themselves well, and treat the other one well, to the other people around you, and the relation you have with yourself. And we don't have the right to lie to children.
That's
we
right.
don't we don't have the right to lie about the nature of nature. It's not I That's why I don't have much friends.
If I understand completely, you
This,
know,
people don't like to be confronted about their own nature. And most of the time when you get into psychology, you get very comfortable listening to people, and looking at how they behave and how they move and how they talk.
right.
And people are like open books. You can read through the pages.
That's right.
Yeah.
If you sense that, you can feel the vibe, and you read, you can suss them out like that. Yeah,
Hmm. Because
yeah,
and I'm gonna generalize there, but most people don't know that they don't know. Okay, so we're talking to grown ass people with the mind of 5 or 6 years old emotionally.
yes,
Maybe not intellectually, but emotionally, they're like children,
that's right. That's
and
right.
it's very dangerous.
It is. Well, they don't have. Well, this is the whole thing, Fred. That's exactly why we're where we are right now
Hmm.
in the world, because people, they can't say, "Oh my God, I can't believe that this organ, the government or the media or whatever, would do this." And once you really dig into the history, and you see that, oh, not only would they, that they essentially hate us and want to see us dead, that they're all, that what they want, we're, it's like the human farm. We're the, we're the animals and they're the farmers, you know, and they that's what they really want. And the more, rather than that being a depressing idea, I can only speak for myself. I prefer to know that, because now I know my enemy, and now I
Mhm.
know how to stand up, to them, and go through my life and not live under an illusion, but that's part of the whole thing with education too. You're taught from day one, oh, the government is there to, the government is there to help you. It's there, they're public servants. Whereas instead of government is slavery, they're the, instead of the truth, you know, instead of reading Thomas Paine and Lysander Spooner and all that stuff, we don't, I had to discover, luckily I read Thomas Paine, but he was the only one that I read of any of these people in my whole education. Well, I should say my indoctrination from, through my, through my earliest years up through I graduated from college, that I didn't do the reading, that I didn't go and find this stuff for myself. And even after, I still, as much as I was looking for stuff, I didn't understand that government was the biggest cult until I came to, Mark's work and really understood that what was basically with government, they just took what they had with the royal families and they dispersed that. Instead of one family like this, they dispersed that to an organization in the country. And that it was the same thing, that we never left, we never left feudal rule,
No, oh my God, no. We're still warlike,
yeah,
imperialist, feudalist. Yeah, that's never changed. It's sure it changed. It transformed with the time. It was a king before. Now it's many people. There's a bunch of them. But I think what was the turning on with me with that is the story of World War II has been a really a revelation about the nature of government and globalism and things like that. It was very uh, very apparent. Very you can, if you can read between the line, it's everywhere. The involvement of Canada, United States, UK into the world wars.
yes,
It everybody has his hand soaked with blood. You
absolutely, absolutely. And that's not even to mention the fact that after the war, when they there's the saying that the Germans, the Nazis won the war, the Germans lost, that, and that essentially they took all the brain trust from the Nazis and they dispersed them to the United States and Russia, and they created all the organizations. There's a great Jim Keith book about mind control that details all of this, about how the Operation Paperclip, and
know.
it details everything, and you see how the so-called intelligence agencies, I didn't know this, until I started really studying that Harry Truman actually was not going to, um, he said, I'm not going to put the OSS, which is the precursor to the CIA. I'm not going to okay this. And then, initially he was against it, but then, his handlers told him what to do, and they put all the
Sure.
Nazis in charge,
Yeah, and and Nazis never lost a war.
That's
It's
right.
it's a lie.
No, they didn't.
They
And
actually, I would argue that they won World War II. I think on the ideological, technological, and medical aspect, the Nazis as took the control of the world by its influence. I know I'm sure you know that United States had was very pro-Nazi.
Absolutely. Yes. He
So
was.
America and Canada actually were very pro-Nazi, pro
That's
Third Reich. Yeah.
that's right. Hitler was Times Man of the Year, and before they even in his first, he came over to the United States on tour in the early 30s, and all the studio executives took him around to all the studios, and he was greeted warmly, and he was greeted
Hmm.
like a hero, when he was here. And it wasn't until they got the order that, oh, we have to pretend we're against this guy, whereas the Bush family and all the other families were giving money to the Nazis, while America went into, was, you know,
Rome, you know.
yep, was put into World War II through the false flag of Pearl Harbor,
Hmm.
Yeah,
There was a lot of misinformation and exaggeration into the information about the Second World War. Um,
absolutely.
it was sensationalized. They made movies about this. I'm not sure about certain information, so I don't want to get too deep into that. But this is a war is an horrifying, cruel, and it's not civilized. It's not the behavior of a civilization.
It's not. And what you have, at least what you have in the modern days, you have all these think tanks run by these Satanists who are basically, they're puppet mastering
Yep.
all this, these, the bodies of the young, the young people to go into these wars. It was what happening. We mentioned propaganda yesterday. Bernays was responsible in World War I, that poster where they have the German soldier bayoneting the Belgian baby. Bernays was responsible for putting that out into mass circulation to get, the public against the Germans. You know,
Incredible.
yeah. So all this, I mean, it's on so many fronts. What's happening, what our current situation is today. You've got all these people, in the U.S. State Department, who are really pulling the strings of all this carnage that's going on. They're the ones who, they're basically, and this gets into another thing that Mark talks about. Here they are, they're just saying words, but they're getting the people to go in through the cults of the soul, the military and all these. They're getting these people to sacrifice themselves. War is just a mass ritual, mass satanic sacrifice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I cannot unsee that. I'm and after all these years, um and I want to bring a little fact there. I cannot listen to any war movies.
Yeah,
I'm totally I cannot do it anymore. The
yeah,
nature of war is disgust me at. I mean, I feel so bad, when I see what happened between brothers and sisters, because
uh,
this is how I see it.
it,
You know.
it it is. That's exactly what it was, you know and I can also tell you from a personal experience that, my father was a World War II veteran. He fought in the Pacific he survived, but he came back. He was, I'm convinced he had PTSD, and he was totally, it was total, um, mind control, to the point, because the trauma that he saw over there. He was in Iwo Jima, and when he was there, he survived. But the way that he survived was he had to lay face down in the water for 3 days and play dead, because the Japanese soldiers. He told me this story as a young child. He said, I had to lay face down and pretend I was dead, because otherwise the Japanese soldiers would go through the bodies and they'd bayonet anybody that moves slightly.
A display of a that's a barbaric way of behaving. There's no civilization there. It's tribes, different tribes with different political, and I would agree with a gentleman that I heard that I think we're not smart enough to be in to do politics.
It's well, it's it really is, you know, I mean,
We just cannot do it. We can do it. All the people, let's say that everyone wants to join together. Let's say that's an utopia and everybody wants to change for the better, and we had a lot of work to do, only just for communication means. If we start with this mentality of I'm bigger, stronger than you, well, just there, it's impossible. You have a different religion than mine. In my country, this is Islam or Christianity or other things. It- people cannot get together because of a lot of different things. But what we made our choice. We had the chance to grow up as a people, but it seems that we're still tribalists and uh spiritual. We're still at a spiritual infancy when
it's
it comes to this, and our understanding about the nature of nature is still at a early stage. We just got conscious about some things that we some things that we can see, but there's a lot of meta stuff outside in the world, and our understanding of consciousness and things like that. And we're branding this word everywhere, like consciousness. The people are conscious, but I mean most of them are charlatans. you
yeah,
know I would agree. I would agree with the fact. I mean, with my experience, even in the truth movement, even in the spiritual movement, we can see this cognitive dissonance and this lies and deceptions in the communities.
absolutely. And that's the one thing that where this so-called truth movement will never get off the ground, if there's so much infighting, because the Satanists, they're all, there's a thing, I think Napoleon, you remember there's a book, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and he talks about the mastermind, which is that element of having a singularity of purpose and the level of care
Yep.
that everybody's moving towards the same goal. All the dark occultists, despite whatever differences they may have, they are unified towards their end goal. People in the so-called truth movement are not even close to being unified with an end goal, because everybody's fighting instead of having discretion about saying, let me look at what somebody is saying. I'll take the good parts of what they say, what makes sense to me, leave the rest alone. I don't have to agree with everything, but let's take the good parts and let's move towards those. Let's band together with the good parts and use discretion and discernment with, what we believe and what we don't believe, what we come to accept as a truth, shall I say. If we,
Mhm.
if instead of getting to that, everybody's fighting, saying this person's a shill, this person's a controlled opposition, and that may very well be. But the thing is, if you take the good points of everybody and not worry about the rest, it's not up to you whether the person is controlled opposition or not. It's if they have something of value to say, take that and then leave the rest alone. Don't concentrate on that person and build from there and find people who are actually of a like mind and who want to go towards this singularity of purpose. Maybe we should have people read Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and get the mastermind, mindset towards becoming more unified. That, because if we don't have the care to banding together, because, these, if we don't fight, we're going to get rolled over.
I mean, the history is a good way to learn about what these different people, different civilization has behaved, and we see this cycle of creation, destruction, intimately imbued into the cultures. And I think these current are actually not natural. I think they're induced. You know,
Yes,
we 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 were not given the choice as conscious humans, and I'm not considering most people conscious. I would say that 98% of people are still unconscious. And
absolutely.
I call them sleepwalkers,
Right.
or not
Oh,
insulting them.
that, that's right. There was a thing where the I forget whether it was the World Economic Forum or they had our CDC. They had the thing on their website for the zombie apocalypse, and the thing is that most of the people out there are. I'm sorry to I have to say it. There's zombies. They're not conscious. They really are the dead. They're the unbegun. They're not. They are. They don't have the first. They aren't even stage one. They're simply living for momentary satisfying of desires and brute, root level chakra survival. They're not more evolved rather than that.
How much stimulation we have from medias and entertainment to this stimulation there, it's not good when it's too much. There's so much thing to stimulate our instinctual needs and things like that, and you can see it everywhere. Symbolism, and the way that they're telling us the information, and they're selling us this stuff that we don't need.
That's
And
right.
yeah, they're using this nurturing aspect, this thing, this oh, they call that, oh my god, I forgot, scarcity,
Yes.
scarcity mindset, and things like that. So
Yep.
it's totally intergenerational, by the way. We live into a poor uh place and things like that, we're conditioned this way, and thinking that that's how it is for everyone and in the world, and we have the tendency to create groups, tribes, religion, creeds, and other group to try to find a substitute for parentality, for parents that we don't have because our parents were working 40 hours a week, and they were tired, and there's a lot of negligence that it transpired from that.
Yes. Yes, that's absolutely true because parents of, the parents who raised us, there was a their idea was, well, I put a roof over your head,
Yeah.
I'm giving you food, you're not out on the street, so I'm doing my job.
Yep.
That's as far as it went with so many, you know.
And
And
I'm happy to. I just want to do a shout out to Will Keller, who's gonna be a doing a live about conscious parentality. So I encourage everyone to go see that because it's so important.
oh, right on. Will's work is awesome, and he really has he's done amazing work
Hmm.
on that level. Yeah, on that subject. Yes, he's great, man.
Yeah, and having children brings you back into the reality of things. You know, if you do it, my children are not stupid. No children are stupid. No, they're very sensitive, they're very smart, and they're very intuitive.
That's
And
right.
they're gonna know if you lie to them.
That's right. They're empathic beings, and they don't have that filter, you know.
Yeah.
I and they know they sense when something's right or wrong. They sense when something's bullshit or it's not. And that a lot of times, if it's been the right environment for them, they'll let you know about it. If they're not afraid to, they'll let you know.
If they can't communicate it, if they don't, they're not taught how to communicate this their emotions, and think in a healthy way, they're gonna blame themselves for the inadequacies and the flaws of their parents. And
Right.
it's doing a terrible schism and damage to the conscious of the conscience of these young people, because they're gonna children try to please you.
That's
You know,
right.
they're that way, so they're gonna act. But we when you're do conscious parenting, it's very different.
Yep.
I'm able to do the introspection during the conversation, during what is happening, whatever the event that happening, you and it's how you respond to what is happening with your children. If your children did something naughty, or broke something, or uh, did something like you consider that um, bad or something like that, we try, we are for nonviolence. Me and my wife,
Right.
this is how we deal with the children. We're trying to make them understand, and uh, the little these little details, like causality.
Hmm.
Causality is what I use to raise my children. If you do something, if you hurt your sister, if you did something and you hurt yourself, then because it's the way you did it, it's the action that you took, there's going to be consequences.
Right.
And
That's
children can understand these things. It's not going to mean that they're going to be perfect, you know.
right.
They're gonna still make mistakes. It's not about that. It's about telling them how it works in the real world, and not I'm not telling to parents to show them the horrors of when they're young, you don't show them war or things like that. You're gonna traumatize them, you know, and this, you don't want that. You don't want that.
They're such sensitive creatures, and that these things make such an impression. You know, I think Jay Parker was talking about that before the age of 7. I think the child is in a hypnagogic state, I think is what he
Yeah,
called, and that, you know, they're just sponges up
yeah,
to a certain point, and they're not, you know, as they say, you know, the formative years, formatting, like formatting a hard drive. You know, this is what, you know, even I think Vladimir Lenin said, um, give me the child until he is 7 and I will show you the man, you know.
yeah. And there's no perfect way to raise children. There's no guide for that. You know, you do what you think is the best for them, but there's a way to interact with an individual. The way I see my children is I see them as other people.
Right.
I don't see them, they're not mine. I don't hold them.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So I treat them like different individual humans. So if I want, what I would want that people treat me with is respect and understanding. And this is how I treat my children. I try. I'm not perfect. Nobody is, but we're trying as much as we can to give them the chance to take decisions and
Mhm.
make mistakes and things like that. And being human, what is being human? Is being in 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 relation, this relation we have with with our emotions,
Mm.
you know, telling your children, like, your children just got hurt, just fell on the ground and start to cry. You're not, you don't, you have to tell them, you have to show them that it's okay to be hurt and cry and be sad and be angry. You know, you don't tell them, oh, don't be angry, don't be sad, you know, and things like that, because it's creating this blockage, these 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 walls
Yes.
inside, you
Yeah,
know. And they, when they become adults, it's gonna have like hard repercussion into their life, you know, their relation with the others and with themselves.
that's right. Plus, the other thing is, I think it was Kelly Gibran who said that your children, they come through you, they're not from you. And
Yep.
the more, if you understand you've got a sacred, you know, it's a sacred job to take care of these children, to be their guardian, you know.
Hmm.
And it's like, that's the most important thing. You treat them in that way, you know, you're their steward, you know.
Yep.
And the more if you understand it and take that perspective, whatever happens, you know, that's what is necessary to happen in their life, and be that, you know, be that person in their life for their development.
Yep.
Get them, you know, help them to form themselves, you know, be their guide, and then
Yep.
when they're ready, go out into the world and do their thing.
The thing I, before expressing my love to them, I tell them all the time, I'll always be there for you. I'm never gonna throw you out of the house. You're gonna, the door is always open. If you need me, if you, for something, for whatever you need, I'm there in your back. I'm gonna be there behind you, you know. And the children, if you can see the face of my children when I'm telling them that, you know, this, you
Yeah,
know, they feel relieved.
I get it. Yeah. I
And
mean,
yeah.
You're absolutely right, Fred. That's exactly what it is. Your people need that, that stability. They need that stability, and they need to feel that so much of the problems that people have in the world with relating to each other, and so much of the trauma, is that they didn't have that stability and that ability. Nobody gave them that understanding, and nobody gave them that understanding or showed them how to find that in themselves. You can't, you can't become something if you don't have a model
Yeah,
to know how to be that thing.
exactly.
And
Absolutely. You cannot give something that you don't have.
that's right. That's
And I was blessed with stumbling upon Mark Pastor's work and Michael Tessarian's and all these magi's, these great men. Um, and I it really transformed the transmutation was a very good it's a very good word for what I experience in my life.
mm,
I have children because I started the great work.
wow. That
I totally changed my way of seeing things, my worldview, and my perception about things. And I they're my great work.
mm,
Like I said to you yesterday, they are my great work because
yeah,
they're showing me. I show them, I guide them, but they're showing me. You know,
absolutely. Well, you have the humility to, if you have the humility to do that, and to understand that symbiosis in the relationship between you and your kids, both you and your wife. If you understand that, then that's really special, and you're gonna create some awesome human beings. That's the other thing. So many people, with everything that's been going on, there's so many people who say, "Oh, I don't want to have kids. I don't want to bring kids into this world." But
mm,
we need that. We need that in this world. We need conscious beings to come in here and raise the level of humanity. And the only way we can do that is to, you know, is to do what you're doing.
there's only one way to know if you're if you're made to have children is having one.
Yeah.
This I've seen my children, come into this world, um, and it is a beautiful, gorgeous thing to be witness. The and I have the almost respect of my wife, and I treat we're friends, we're married, we are a couple,
Mhm.
and we are a comrade, we are companions, and this relationship is invaluable. When you have the chance to have that, and not wasting it, with with useless like garbage.
And the thing that's great that you have a partner
Yeah.
to help you there, and has your back, and you're of the same,
Hmm.
on the same page with everything. That is so incredibly important, Fred, because in this day and age, I was listening to some kind of I forget what show it was. People were talking about people who had been injured, with the jab, and then there was there were two or three of the people who were saying that they were having problems in their marriage because the other person did not believe that the injuries that they had were from this. They were not believing them. And it's really sad that just made me feel really sad, because here it is, when when you really need that other person, that that other person believes more in their indoctrination than the living, breathing human being that they've shared a life with.
And was it more men or women?
It was, honestly, it was, I remember hearing three different occasion, three different couples, and it was a mixture of both. It was where the man was injured and the woman wasn't believing him. The other was the woman where the man
Mhm.
wasn't believing her. And the last one, I think, was uh, the man again and the woman didn't believe, if I remember correctly. I think that was it. So it was, it wasn't, it was back and forth,
Yeah,
And
and
so,
this relation is, I mean, this relation we have with and this is what we have the problem with the relationship between men and women in the modern world, is
yes,
because people forgot that it's sacred.
absolutely, absolutely. It's not only sacred, but it comes down to, talking about the Hermetic principles. It's a very base way to say it, but the masculine and feminine principles, the reason we have male and female in that sense, is to, you know, is to express those, to have the embodiment of those two principles in a relationship,
Yeah,
and that to understand, you know, men have one function, women have another. It's not to say that, they're that we have different ways of, that not everybody fits the same mold, but there's definitely a reason that these principles, that it's one of the seven Hermetic principles.
yeah, yeah. That's why we're calling the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine aspect.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and that this is a beautiful thing. If the people have the chance of having a pearl or someone that you really love and you have a symbiosis relationship, this is priceless.
Absolutely.
And it's work, you know.
It is. It is, absolutely, and I have to say, I'm blessed to have a wonderful relationship.
Mhm.
You know, we're on the same page, and she's my, you know, she, as we say, she's my ride or die, my person. I mean, these to have, but it's so important to have somebody. You
Mhm.
know, we just say to each other, if if we wouldn't be with each other, we don't even know what we'd be with anybody in the way that things are in the world. Because
Mhm.
you to have somebody that holds the same values as you, the same ethics and the same morals and the same, the same, the worldview, in the sense, not that we think the same, but you want to be, you want to be,
It's completely, yeah, completing each other's.
yes, you want to be complementary, and you
Mhm.
want to be walking next to each other in
Yep.
that sense.
And I was I'm very lucky to have almost 17 years
Wow,
in the
that's
making.
amazing, man. That's
And we had a 10 years relation before having children, so it was
Oh,
all.
wow.
Yeah, we decided to have one, and finally we're about to have a fourth one.
Oh, man, congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, we we discovered something about ourselves that we didn't know. And I didn't know, I didn't know that I would love that way, because
Yes,
it's another kind of love,
it is. It is. It's all it takes love from eros, to family and to, humanity.
Yep.
You're really going, ascending the ladder, the tree of life, as it were.
If I This is a uh, unforgettable and experience. I would never go back and not having them. I enjoy my life as a family, and they help me grow, and they're showing me, and they're guiding me with their mannerism and this innocence that it I mean, we're having fun. It's not always fun, but we're having fun and we're growing up together. And this kind of love, you cannot get it from elsewhere. This is a connection. It's
Yeah.
forever. It's forever, and I enjoy this very much. I like family, and we want to do more, but I mean, what I mean by that is, yes, sure, we're gonna have a fourth one, but
Right.
we want to uh, bring other people from. I don't know how to say that in English, but it's called parrainage. Means that you uh, take care of the children,
Yes.
like
Yes.
temporarily, like a few hours a week or something like
Right.
that, and
Right. Yeah. Uh,
helping and do what you can to help people and do it willingly and freely. You know.
Well, that would be, if you could establish something like that and do that, level of care, and extend, be of service in that way, that is an amazing gift to the world. Because we, I think about what you said earlier, Fred, in that the there's so many people you've talked to who said, "Oh, I'm not gonna, I don't care, it's about me, and I'm not gonna be here in 5 or 10 years." But
Mhm.
but the thing is, when you have children and you have a family and you have that, you leave something. You're extending. It's not egoistic in that it's your legacy, but you're being part of a of a chain, of a continuum. Yeah. And
Yeah,
the fact that you're continuing, you're continuing the legacy, you're continuing the species, you're continuing humanity. And that is, that's a gift to creation. You're really doing something amazing and of the highest purpose.
if we want to change things, we need to take care of the children and really take care of them, and the change will come gradually. If we the Care is something that, I mean, we don't have care, we don't have anything.
That's
care
right.
Care is like, mm, it's imbued in the tissues of reality. It's like love and creation, you know.
The other thing, Fred, what you're doing, we started the conversation talking about, you know, inter, intergenerational mind control.
Yes. Yeah.
But what you're talking about here, talk about inversion. You're inverting something that's dark and bringing the highest light into it, in having, a family. In that you're breaking the chains of the mind control. You're breaking the chains of,
Yeah.
the intergenerational, well, program, not just, even, you know any kind of programming. We've all been, we
Sure.
grew up in this world. We've been programmed, until we found our way to know that we were living in the matrix, so to speak. you know, until we found that out, we were programmed as well. But the thing is, the deprogramming of that, that's what you're doing. You're contributing to the deprogramming of humanity.
I pretend to do it.
Well, the thing is, with, our conversation last night and our conversation today, I would say, from what I've seen, and knowing your work, you're not pretending, you're doing it. And it's not that as you said, you don't have to be, well, none of us are perfect. But the thing is, you're doing the work, and in doing the work, that's how you're learning. Your children are teaching you, your family's teaching you, your wife is teaching you, humanity is teaching you, even
Yeah.
through all the hard lessons. It's all about learning. We just have to be open to learning, even if the lessons are really harsh at times. If we really, if we come at it with a level of humility and openness to being a student, you know that's the one thing I know that I've carried with me throughout my life and throughout my career. I've always been a student, and I've always wanted to learn. I always put myself in the situation where I said, I want to be the one person in the band who is the least accomplished. I want to be the worst person in the band. I want to be the person who is, I want to be the person who everybody, who I have to do the most work to catch up to everybody else, you know?
Yeah. And I just because I mean, we're an hour and 48 minutes in.
Right.
I told you it's going way too fast. Um,
It is.
so I want to take the time and thank you personally for being there and being part of the LIBERcast, and I thank you so much for your time and wisdom and sharing to all these people. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for
Fred,
being.
it's absolutely my honor and my pleasure. I had a amazing time sharing with you and having this conversation, and I appreciate you. I appreciate the work that you do. I just love doing it. I hope we can do it again soon.
Sure. Thank you, everyone, who was there. I know there's Sophie, Valérie, Chris Nelson was there. I don't know if he's still there. So thank you
Thank you,
for
everyone.
listening to the LIBERcast and taking the time to really think about what we told and what we talk about, because essentially we can only talk from our experience in life. And I encourage everybody, if you had interest in some things, you can go and study about it. Just take the knowledge in and do the great and the shadow work and the great work, and join us into this incredible work of wisdom and love and freedom, because care is what is driving the great work. This is the central point. This is the sun of the occult. Care. The dark occultists have care, but they have dark care.
That's
Here we're not dealing with that. We're dealing with solutions. We're dealing with growing up from this infancy and this troubled, confusing, chaotic time that we are in, and the struggle in our minds and our hearts and our emotions. And don't wait, just do it now. It's now that we change things. It's not in the past, it's not in the future, it's now we have to start. We need everybody who have a two neurons like that, who can come like that. We need you. We need the people. We need parents. We need men and women We need the elderly. If there's some elderly people who are listening, we need all of you in this. And it's not about religion, it's not about that, it's about love, freedom, and care. That's it. That's
That's
it.
right.
It's common sense.
Let's get to critical mass. Let's get past that 51%. And let's make that, let's put that energy out there to turn this around, turn this situation around that we're in.
Whatever, if it happens or not, I don't want to go in the other world without doing nothing, without doing like something about it, you know?
That's
So
right. It's
I,
like
I'm
it's like they said, Fred, the last thing I'll say is like there's the story of all the people who when they're when they're an old when the guy's an old man and his son comes to him and said, well, Dad, what did you do when such and such was happening? You want to be able to say, I want to be able to say, this is what I did. I didn't stand around and do nothing. I did
yep,
something.
exactly. So yeah, Chris, it all about numbers. Yep, it's natural law.
That's right.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening later in YouTube and Odysee. And I had God damn it, I forgot. I have Odysee, YouTube, Facebook, and then I have Twitch now that I'm streaming there for the people. So if you have on your phone, you can subscribe there. It's totally free, but I send everybody to Odysee. Odysee is free. It's blockchain based. When you put your information there, it's free for everybody to take it, share this stuff. Go encourage the One Great Work Network. It's just there in the corner. The One Great Work Network.com that I'm part of. These incredible searchers, these incredible students of the occult, these teachers that are they're incredible, hundreds of hours of stuff to discover or rediscover in some case. So thank you so much. Thank you again, Jim, for joining me, and
My,
see you in the next one.
thank you, Fred. Thank you for everything.
You're welcome. Take care.
You too.